Our guest today has many feathers in her cap, from being HR manager at Australian Museum to online editing and audience research manager, a lecturer at University of Sydney, managing director, and to now being head of learning at Australian National Maritime Museum. Lynda Kelly breathes in museums and digital environments. Hello and welcome to Australian Education Times.
Thank you.
Tell us about your educational journey and how you ended up at the Australian National Maritime Museum today.
Well, I started working in government when I was 18 years old, which was a long time ago, and when I left school I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my father said, well, go and get a job and do university part-time because you don't really know what you want to do. So I did that and I enrolled at Macquarie University and I started in the New South Wales Government Public Service, and I did a psychology degree, and then I decided that I really liked to work with people, so I went into what's called human resource management, which is about paying people and looking after them in their jobs and that kind of stuff. And I did that in several government departments, and then I saw this job at the Australian Museum which said Human Resource Manager at the Australian Museum. I thought, wow, that sounds pretty interesting. So wandered down to the museum, had an interview, and that was it. Once I started there, that was quite a while ago, I was hooked on museums, and so I worked in many different roles ever since. So when I decided to become an HR manager, I did a second degree in human resource management, and then a lot later on I decided that I wanted to do a doctorate, so that's what I did my doctorate in museum education and learning.
How do you feel your extensive education helped you in your career?
Okay, well, first of all, when I did my first degree in psychology, I didn't really know where that was going to lead me, and I think that's probably some good advice for people. If you don't really know what you want to do, just do something that you're interested in, and then that might lead you somewhere. So I don't feel that I ever used my psychology degree until I became involved in education and learning, because that's really a bit more relevant. And the other thing about extensive education is also learning yourself, so keeping up to date with trends. When you work in digital, it's really difficult to keep up to date with things, so you've got to be on board with things like the Education Times, with social media, reading blogs and that kind of stuff. So when I think about education, I don't think about it as formal education, but also me educating myself, and that helps me in my jobs.
Was working for the museum industry something you always wanted to do?
No. As I said, when I left school I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just had some ideas that I did want to work and earn money. And it wasn't until I saw this job ad and I went to the Australian Museum and started there, and I thought, oh, I really love this environment. It's really interesting, people are really interesting to work with, there's really interesting content, and you would have seen some of it coming up the stairs even here. And it's also a very rewarding job because you're doing lots of great things for visitors, and when you see people coming into the museum and loving it, then that's really my job done, basically.
Your job requires you to plan programs and engage with visitors. What do you think is the key to managing good communication and keeping people interested?
The key to that is I've had extensive experience in audience research, and what that means is talking to visitors that are at museums and not at museums, all kinds of visitors, and asking them what they're interested in and what they like doing. And that's what my doctoral thesis was about. It was about how do people learn and what keeps them interested in a topic so that museums can actually meet their needs better. So at my job at the Australian Museum and now at the Maritime Museum, I do a lot of, I spend a lot of time out on the floor talking to visitors, interviewing visitors. I've worked with school students for the last 10 years with someone from University of Sydney, and we get a lot of school students coming in telling us what they want, giving us feedback, and we listen and we act on that feedback and we provide experiences for them. So that to me is the number one thing. It's really understanding people that are coming to your museum, whether it's to the site or whether it's to our website, which is another big thing, and giving people what they want and in a way that they want it. So it's structuring an exhibition, for example, if it's aimed at people like you, we would talk to people your age. If it's an exhibition that's for people that are interested in a particular topic, then we go and talk to those people and say, okay, what do you think we should be putting into this exhibitional program? So that's really important. And then the key to good communication, again, it's about starting from the point of where the visitor is. So if you're very interested in wooden boats, for example, then we would start with that interest and then take you a little bit further on. So it's really about listening to our audiences and then meeting their needs.
Tell us about the online teaching resources and education programs held at the museum.
Okay, so we've got many different programs that we run here. So some of the popular ones are we do a lot of work in histories, and we've got the Endeavour. Have you heard of the Endeavour, the replica Endeavour? So it's a replica of the ship that Captain James Cook sailed to Australia when he first European to discover Australia, for want of a better word. So we do a big program with schools on the Endeavour, and so they learn about history, they learn about immigration, and they learn about life on board a tall ship, which is, if you get a chance to go on it, is pretty horrible. We also do programs around transport. So again, we look at the curriculum, so the topics that you learn at school, we look at that and say, okay, well, what can we do in the museum that helps add to that? So we do things on transport, we do things on gold, because with the gold rush, if you didn't have ships and boats, nothing would have happened, because that's how they got all their food and all their equipment. We do something on shipwrecks. People are very interested in shipwrecks, and in Year 11 there's a chemistry program in the chemistry curriculum, and they come here to our museum and they look at corrosion and all that kind of stuff. And that's a really popular one. And one of our other fun ones is called Pirate School. And if you go back to school, we tell your teacher to come and book into Pirate School, because you get dressed up as a pirate, you go on board a tall ship and you act out crazy things, and it's lots of fun, but it's also a learning experience about how to do something a bit different. So we do that. We've also got a program for preschoolers, so under 5 and under, which we call Mini Mariners, and every Tuesday they come in, and it's from babies up to age 5, and they'll come in and they might do a mermaid tour, or they might do a blue tour, or they might do something around water play. So we do that as a kind of an informal education program. And as far as online teaching resources, we have a lot of material on our website. But we're also working with Apple. Do you use Apple products at school?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're working with them, and we're putting materials in what's called the iTunes U Store. Have you done any courses there? Your teacher might have, and you mightn't have known it, but basically we're putting our education materials in that store, and the person that develops, so they take our materials, put it in their store, and they actually add different applications to it. So for example, we've got an exhibition in the iTunes store about war, and an important part of war was people writing letters home to their parents or their girlfriends. And so in this particular unit of work, you can write a letter or create a song or something, and you can use all the Apple apps to do that. So it's all in one spot. So we're starting to put our materials in spaces where teachers are going. So we know that teachers use that particular platform, we call it, so that's what we're doing there. And we've also got a very exciting online project called, we've actually got a game that we're developing. It's an educational game, and we might actually talk to Education Times about putting in an article in that about that. And this game is about, it's called The Voyage, and it's about the Endeavour. And you take the role of a ship surgeon, and your task is to get as many convicts from England to Australia alive as possible, because that's how you got paid. So if you brought 100 convicts over, you got paid for 100 convicts. If you left England with 100 convicts and you only turned up with 50, you'd only get paid for 50. So the idea of the game is to figure out, okay, what kinds of convicts do I need to pick? What food do I need to do? What way do I need to get to Australia? Because it's a very long trip, as you can imagine. It's over a year. Where do I need to go? Where do I get new supplies? And you start to build that up. It's a little bit like Minecraft. And you start to build that up. No, not Minecraft. So you start to build up, and you get points and everything for getting to Van Diemen's Land, which is now called Tasmania. So to me, that's probably our most exciting educational online program for this year, and we're hoping to launch that later in the year. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing. It's about formal education programs where we bring students to the museum, and it's also about going and doing fun things like pirate schools and games and things like that. So that's where we're heading.
You taught it at a university in the past. How was that experience compared to being the head of learning today? And what was more exciting?
Yes, I thought about that question when I looked at it. I think both jobs are very exciting, and as I said before, for my job here, it's when you actually go out and you see people in exhibitions or doing our programs and really enjoying it, that gives me a lot of satisfaction, and that's exciting. But for me, working at university, I love working with students because you can kind of not mentor them, I don't know if you know what that word is, but help them achieve things, and it's very satisfying to me to know that the students that I've taught are now working in in museums. One of my students from 2 years ago, she got a job at a museum in United States called the Museum, which is an amazing museum. For her to get that job was incredible, being an Australian. So that really, really excites me when I can see their learning and seeing them move on to good things. And I taught them about digital there, and what was great for me was some of the older students, some of the older women in particular, who were really scared of computers and iPads and applications and mobile things, and by the end of the course they're all over it. So they set themselves up on Twitter and they're understanding how to write a blog, they know how to develop a mobile application, so that was exciting. So they were both exciting jobs, but in different ways.
In your opinion, what does it take to be a leader?
I think you need to be pretty patient with people, and I think you need to work with people's strengths and find out what their interests are and how you can actually develop them. And I also think you've got to be a very positive and happy person. I think so, and like to have fun and laugh a lot. And I also think that you need to be quite fair and you need to be honest with people. So if you see some problem or some issue, that you take that on and deal with it. And also, I think probably the most important thing is celebrating success. So when our team does something great, or when we have a really fantastic response to a program, then we really celebrate that. And the other thing is also, we celebrate our failures as well. We did a project in January with one of my team, and it was about tracking people through the museum, and it didn't work at all. And so we just sat down and said, okay, well, that's fine. The good thing about it is that we learned something, and even if it didn't work, we learned how to do it better next time. So it's all of that kind of combination of things that I think you need to be a good leader.
How do you cope with the pressure of pleasing visitors and promoting the museum so people keep returning?
That's a really very good question. Because we're located in Darling Harbour, so we get a lot more tourists here than I know about other museums, and it's hard to get them to return because they're only in Australia for a short period of time, so they come here. What we try and do with our regular visitors is we have a members program, and our family members, so they can join the museum, and then we provide them special benefits. So that's a really good thing, and people love being members, and I've been interviewing a lot of members over the last couple of months for a project, and it's really great to talk to them and find out what their interests are and what keeps bringing them back. So that's something. But I think if you please visitors and give them a great experience, they will come back and they'll tell other people, which is important. So it's not necessarily a balancing act. It's okay, well, please visitors. If you do that, they will return. I think probably the bigger pressure is for museums the need to bring money in, because although museums across Australia are funded by government, we're still required to make some money. So that's probably for us the biggest pressure. And how do you do that when you want to provide a great experience, and you also want to provide access to the museum's content and collections, which is important, without kind of pricing yourself out of the market. So that's an issue that we're trying to deal with at the moment.
There are a lot of children that look up to you while learning at the museum. Who is someone you look up to and why?
I probably look up to the people that work here, that work on the floor every day with visitors, because I had to do, each holidays we all take turns in doing cloaking, which means we take people's bags, and all day you're on your feet, you're talking to people, you're being nice to them, And I think, how could I couldn't do that 5 days a week? So every time I do the cloaking, I think to myself and I go to those people, you really do a great job. So they're the kinds of people that I look up to, and people that really love what they're doing and are really passionate about their work. So there's not one particular person I look up to, but it's probably a lot of people that just do a lot of that everyday work that don't really get rewarded or recognised sometimes.
You have come a long way from when you first graduated. Are there any more goals you hope for the future, and what are they?
Yeah, what I want to do in a couple of years' time is just do something completely different. So I'm contracted to work at the museum until I think the end of next year, and I'm thinking that I might move to a different city and try doing some contract work or try doing something different. Because I've been in the museum industry for a very long time and I've built up a lot of skills, and now I'm kind of thinking I might like to work for myself for a while and do short-term contracts and come in and help people with a particular problem and write reports or do a study or something like that. So yeah, I think that would be my long-term goal. And also to cut back a bit, because I don't know about you, but everyone is so busy and so stressed and pressured, and I'd like to kind of pull back from that a bit. So we're looking at buying a house somewhere in the country or in a different state and actually doing something different.
What advice would you give to students who are interested in museums and want to potentially begin a career in one?
Okay, well, it's like a lot of industries, it's very competitive to get into a museum because there's not many jobs, and a lot of people that work in museums stay there because A, they love what they're doing, and B, some of them can't get jobs elsewhere because they're so specialised, and C, they ain't going anywhere because they can't work anywhere else. So my advice to students, and when I teach students, is to go and volunteer at the place that you're interested in, talk to people that work in the industry, do some study. So for example, to work in a museum, you could do a Master of Museum Studies, which a lot of people do. I also encourage people to do a general degree because then it gives you general skills for working in places like museums. But probably the number one way is to actually go and volunteer or do an internship at a museum and meet people and network, and from that, and I have hired interns. I've got one intern in today because she interned with me when I started here, and now she's working for me. So that's what advice I would give. But it's a tough job market at the moment, so it's hard to get in.
It was great meeting you. On behalf of the Australian Education Times, thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Thank you.